Hi, my name is Diana B. Thompson. I'm the owner of Dramatic Adventures, and I've created a program called Heroes, Leaders, Champions. I'm an expert in emotional intelligence, social intelligence, problem solving, and identity shaping. This is a technique that I use to help young people create the person they want to become using the same tools an actor uses to create a role for the stage. When you have a program called Heroes, Leaders, Champions, naturally you are invited to talk about leadership at a high school. Now, when you think about leadership in teenagers, what comes to your mind? What kind of things come to your mind when you think of leadership in teens?
Student council?
Student council.
Involvement.
Yeah, they're involved. Maybe they're at the top of their game. They're running clubs. They're captains, right? They're the head of their sports team, or they're taking a real lead in athletics or whatever their interest is. I asked my teenage daughter what she thought that teenagers would expect to hear about leadership or want to hear. And do you know what she said to me? She said, leadership is just something else that parents, teachers, and college recruiters want from us. Like it's something that goes on the checklist along with their homework. Leadership, done for the day. It's a big ask for kids to go get straight A's and then be leaders, or start a book club, or how about a social movement? Being a leader is a big ask, and we haven't really defined or refined that enough for kids to really be able to identify what that means. We can look at qualities. There's resilience, there's determination, there are all of these qualities, but again, what do they think of when it comes to leadership? It's a big program, and I'll tell you, I could spend an entire week talking about leadership and teaching leadership. So in 15 minutes, I'm going to refine it down to one area of leadership. And you're wondering what that is. But I'm going to introduce that with a little experiment. You will see on this page, there are 3 lines of different lengths. Observe. On this page, there is one that matches the length of one of these. So take a look and try to guess which one of these lines matches this length. I'm going to call out the numbers one at a time, and raise your hand when you think I've called the coordinating number. If you think it's number 1, raise your hand. Number 2, raise your hand. Number 3, raise your hand. All right. Most of you agree that it is number 3, and you would be right. But if you were in a room where everyone gave the wrong answer, would you still go with what you think is the right answer, or would you go along with them? 75% of the people who engaged in this experiment, it's called the Ash experiment, gave the wrong answer knowing it was the wrong answer because they didn't want to stand out from the crowd. Again, this is called the Ash experiment, A-S-C-H. There are videos of this experiment online, and I encourage you to look at this, to share this with your student, because it's fascinating to see that dynamic. This represents that herd mentality or peer pressure, that mob mentality where we don't want to be different from those around us. There are a lot of other examples. There's another one that is kind of hilarious, where there are all of these people in a room, and every time a bell rings, these people stand up and they sit down. It's in a doctor's waiting room. So some unsuspecting person comes in, she sits down, she hears the little bell, people stand up and sit down. Within 2 or 3 cycles, she's doing the same thing without asking any questions. It's in a doctor's office. One at a time, everyone is invited out of the room, and she's left alone, and when the bell rings, she stands up and she sits down. Someone else, unsuspecting, comes into the room. The bell rings, she stands up, sits down. He says, "Why are you doing that?" She was like, "I don't know, it's fun." He starts doing it. And it just goes to show how subconscious it is for us to follow the leader. And now those sound like really fun, entertaining experiments that you can watch. But there's a dangerous side to this as well. There was an experiment called the smoke-filled room. And this is mildly terrifying. So researchers did this the first time in the 1960s. They invited people to come in to fill out an application. And they brought people into this room one at a time, sat the test subject down and said, fill out that application and don't leave the room until I come back. The researcher leaves the room, and within a couple of minutes, smoke begins to fill the room. Now, within a couple of moments, the test subject will get up and leave the room just as they're supposed to do. Evacuate the building, go report that there is a fire in the building, as long as they're alone. But when they are in a room surrounded by other people who are not responding, most of the time they will not leave. This study was based on an event. They developed the study after an event where there were people in a Woolworth's store in New York City, and everyone in the entire store evacuated when this fire broke out except in the restaurant. And there were multiple people who died in that restaurant because everyone was waiting for their check. No one left. And in the video online, I'll share a link for the video that's going to be shared for East High School students. The video that shows online, you will see someone who waits in a room filling with smoke, surrounded by other people who are not responding, for 20 minutes. Because this subconscious need to be part of the group is so strong that you're not even aware of it. This happens because of mirror neurons. We are biologically designed to copy the actions of those around us. It's what young children do. That's how they learn. They imitate the adults and the people around them. We're biologically designed to do that. And when you look at the school, it's a wonderful example of how conformity has come into play, and it has enabled us to create schools where people come in and they follow the rules and they learn. And we've created cultures because of these mirror neurons, but there's a dangerous part of it too. And you don't have to look much farther than the news these days to see that herd mentality in action. These days we're seeing it every day. And it's easy to assume that this peer pressure, herd mentality is limited to just students, but it's not. Just from the time I learned about this experience, I've become more aware of it myself. And I've caught myself in a number of situations where I was going along with the crowd. A week or so ago, I happened upon this occasion where several adults were trying to lift an old upright piano up a flight of stairs. Now, this piano was like 600 pounds. And they had it on its back, and they were pushing it up the stairs. And I thought, well, I'll help. So I go to the top of the stairs, and we have it to this one point where we realize the only way to get it to the top is to get around an obstacle, this radiator that was at the top of the stairs. The guy at the bottom says, well, there's only one way to do it. We've got to lift this thing up over our heads and tip it up on its side. There were 7 adults there, and everybody was like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that. This piano that weighs hundreds of pounds, what could go wrong? 4 people are on the stairs underneath it. 2 of us are above it. And when I go to reach the leg of the piano, thinking, okay, I'm on the top, I can offer some support, I realize that leg is unstable. And I could just imagine someone having a misstep, the leg becoming loose, the weight shifting, and then we have a very serious accident. And I didn't want to say anything at first because everybody was like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to lift this piano over our heads. And I went, okay, wait a minute. We have to have some kind of safety measure. And as soon as I did that, everybody went, oh, thank you, including the guy who suggested lifting the piano over our heads. Because in that moment, he just didn't see another way. And afterwards, he said, I'm really glad you said something. But it's so easy to just go along with what everyone agrees with. And to be honest, if I hadn't been thinking about this, I'm not sure that I would have said anything because it wasn't my job. But it is so easy to step back and assume that someone else is in charge, that someone else is in control. Leadership is speaking up when it's uncomfortable. It's guiding and inspiring others, and there's a big risk to being a leader. There's a risk that you will be wrong, that you will be rejected. And that is the emotional component of leadership. So, how do we help our young people develop this skill? First, show them this video. Show them the videos of these experiments online so they can become aware of this herd mentality. That's number 2. Number 3 is to just start talking about emotions that you observe in the world, about your own emotions, and it doesn't have to be like therapy. You could be talking about the stress that you felt, what you saw in the office where people were angry, frustrated, disappointed. The more you're talking about emotions, the more we become aware of them. The more we become aware of them, the more we can identify when that feeling of emotion is telling you something's not quite right here. Because emotions are telling us when there is a problem to solve. And if everyone else is ignoring it, it's easy to ignore it. But the more aware that we are of those emotions, the more we can capture that emotion and use that as our energy to speak up. So talk about emotions. Look for opportunities to recognize this herd mentality. Point it out when you see it in the news. Have a conversation around dinner, your dinner, around the current events where the herd mentality comes into place. We hear about it with teen pressure and when students are imitating one another, and it happens all the time. So another approach that you can take in helping students recognize this is to put it in action in real time. How many of you have driven with a teenager in the car? The car is the perfect place to observe this herd mentality. I was teaching my teenager to drive, and here we are going down the street. The speed on this road was 25 miles an hour. And people are riding our bumper. And I'm like, go, go, go. Come on, it's better to go with the flow of traffic. And she says, the speed limit is 25. But the driving conditions are the perfect place to observe this herd mentality. One person gets angry and you just see it snowball. It ricochets. It's like it's contagious. So the more we can help our students to recognize it, then the more they can identify it, the more they can manage it, and the more they can live up to it. The herd mentality shows up in so many ways, but you can ask your student, if all your friends jumped off a cliff, would you jump too? If they don't understand the elements of the herd mentality, of mirror neurons, and what it takes to be a leader and speak up when that's a tough thing to do, they might say, yeah, I'll follow my friends off the cliff. I teach tools for emotional intelligence, social intelligence, problem solving, and identity shaping, helping parents, teens, kids learn these tools and how to be heroes, leaders, and champions. Thank you.